Tape.
Hello, everybody. Look at everybody
Hello,
pouring in.
everybody. Yes, good evening if you're on the East Coast like me. Are we still good afternoon or are we good evening for you, JP?
It's
Where's
6 o'clock my time, so evening.
KC always throws me for a loop in terms of time zone there. And then of course we have our West Coast conglomerate there. So good late afternoon to you folks. And who knows, and I know we are often very well represented geographically, so I'm sure we miss some time zone as well, but welcome either way. First, we got something we will do introductions and quick housekeeping stuff, but a couple of things to get the juices flowing a little bit here. Number one, if you're up for it, just tell us what the graduating class, so you're a high school student, put that in the chat. Tell us where you are in the country or the world. Again, if you're feeling uh I don't know, like participating here. And then JP has something that he thinks is a good place to kick us off here. Now, I'm going to be in the audience right now too. I've kind of heard about this. I have not seen it myself, but I think it's a good little table setter for our conversation tonight. So I guess JP, with that, kind of take it away, and then we'll dig into the task at hand.
All right. I can't take credit for this. This was found by somebody else, but I thought it was a very appropriate video for this. So let me just share my screen real quick. All right. Hopefully that is visible.
We supposed to hear anything?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the volume up. Let me see if is the volume not coming through?
Volume is not coming through.
Oh, darn it.
That was my concern.
Oh, never mind.
All right.
It
Well,
was, if anyone has seen that episode, it's a classic, but basically very um very reminiscent of what it's the angst that families go through in this season. My 2026 families right now are going through. They've got their acceptances. Like that was the first level of anxiety, and now they're getting their financial aid award letters, going, "Oh gosh, how are we going to pay for this?" So that's the next level of anxiety.
that's
So
right.
anyway,
Yeah.
sorry that the darn. I wish that video would have had the audio working.
You're good, man. Look, we're still going to we're going to hit that subject matter many times over in the next 57 minutes here. So,
Very, very true.
again, by way of quick introduction, my name is Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders here at College Aid Pro. This is my 20th trip around the sun in guiding families through this college process. I think JP is one of the very few people, if not the only one on our team that has been in this industry longer than I am, although I have only been on kind of this side of the desk. And what I mean by that is JP he's been the director of financial aid at University of Southern California, USC. He's been admissions. He's been just again on the campus side for many, many years, kind of in his first life or one of his first lives. And this is what I think, yeah, makes him very unique and the reason why I personally kind of pursued him so aggressively to get him a part of the team is because he's now been, on the other side of the desk working with families and on both the financial aid side and the admission side again. So a bit of a unicorn in that sense. Not too many walking around like him, but it's just a huge advantage for us and a huge advantage of you guys to be able to have that. He's been behind the scenes. He knows, what it looks like when colleges are making admissions decisions, when they're packaging financial aid families. So, again, a wealth of knowledge. We're excited to have this conversation with you guys. And if we do our jobs, if we do a good job tonight, we're going to get you guys to take action tonight. That's our responsibility. Because I don't care if, and we were just talking about it, we're going to talk about it some more. Like the data is so compelling. The sooner you engage in this process, right? If we can get you going as a rising ninth grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, it's a hockey stick in terms of us having a successful outcome here in terms of ROI in both the admissions and the financial side. So that's going to be a huge theme. And again, another thing that we go against, just the tide we fight, is this misconception that if I make too much money, if I have too much in savings, if I'm not going to get this traditional financial aid, that means I got to pay full sticker price, right? And that's just again a gigantic myth that we want to dig into tonight. So, JP, just say anything else you want to say about yourself, and then we'll get cooking, man.
I'll say I think you covered it
Okay,
pretty thoroughly. I should have you do all my intros.
there you go, pal. Well, you've earned it. You've earned it. So let's dig in. Actually, a couple of housekeeping things. If you have, we want your questions, right? This is going to be a better presentation. You're going to get more out of it if it's interactive. Please put them in the Q&A. If you got to jump, or if you end up sharing this with buddies, neighbors, whatever, and whoever couldn't make it tonight, all the questions will be recorded in the Q&A, and that's where JP and I are going to be focusing. You could be anonymous too. Ask us a super personal question that's confusing you, keeping you up at night, or whatever. We'll answer it. We are not dismissing you if the answer is like, because a lot of times we get the questions, we're divorced, who should complete the FAFSA? I'm a business owner, how do I value my business? These types of questions, we're going to say, just talk to us. We got to talk with you because we need more context. We got to ask you more questions before we can provide a recommendation. But if we can answer it, we're going to answer it. Okay. And we'll answer as many as we can. So please test us. How about this? I'm going to call my shot, JP. I'm guaranteeing we won't be stumped tonight. How about that? We cannot be stumped.
Can we limit this to financial aid related or college related?
Got to be within our ecosystem. Got to
Okay.
be within. It's got to be within our ecosystem. Yeah. So first, we're going to talk about, number one, just how does this whole thing work, right? What do we need to know, kind of from a higher level? Number two, how's it going to work for your family, right? That's you got to walk away here. There is no one size fits all kind of best practices here, right? We got to figure out what kind of bucket our family fits into. That's going to drive our strategy. And then again, this action absorbs anxiety, right? This is a term that I poached from a whatever, someone I consider to be a mentor of sorts of mine. I identify with it a lot. We're anxious about something. I don't care what it is. And if, like, as soon as we go to state, take some action towards it, which is, it's like boom, we're a little bit less anxious. So we're going to try to help you give some clear direction. What does that mean? Where I'm going to start is just some broader context, and I like to use this as motivation. Yes, we're going to be, I don't know, vilifying colleges and kind of this higher education racket that we have here in the United States, and that's what it is, right? It's still I think one of the best things we as Americans hopefully get the opportunity to do is go to college. I still think it's an amazing investment if it's done correctly, but it's a freaking racket. It's gotten completely out of control. And these are reasons why, right? If nothing else, this should be good fodder for your next cocktail party when you're talking to other friends that are going through this with their kids, and when you get the question, why the hell is college so expensive, right? Well, who benefits from college being expensive, right? You got some pretty freaking big players here. Obviously, the colleges, right? The more expensive your product, the higher your margin, per product that you sell. That's good for business, right? Kind of a no-brainer there. The United States government, this is not go challenge me on this. Go chat GPT it right now as I'm talking. Their highest asset class that the United States government owns is college loans. Parent and student loans is the highest asset class, right? The biggest asset class of all the thing that everything that our government owns, the financial portfolio of our government. That's the biggest asset class, right? You could argue, right? The government. I'm not saying this was intended or malicious consequences, whatever. As a matter of fact, I don't think it was. It just kind of spun out of control. But you could argue that they need college to be expensive, to remain expensive, remain opaque, have the consumer be at an unbelievable disadvantage. And of course, when you have an industry that is this big and is a very big industry, you're going to have Wall Street get involved there, right? And they're going to get involved no matter what. For just about every family, if your family that is fortunate enough to be able to have some resources to be able to save some money, most of you are going to do it in a 529, in a mutual fund, in a maybe a UGMA custodial account. Who's holding that money, right? One of our buddies on Wall Street here. You're one of these families that you didn't have the ability to save for college, or you didn't have the ability to save enough for college. So now you're going to go borrow when you send your kids off to college from Wall Street at 9% or whatever it happens to be. So they're going to win either way. So this is who we're going up against, okay? And I share this because I think so many families, especially when you go on these college tours, think that, these colleges got my best financial interests at heart. They don't. It's not, again, it's not in a malicious way. They're on the other side of the transaction, right? So it's important that again, I think the mindset of the consumer is really important because for all like the other major investments that we have in our lives, right? Most of us, there's all these guardrails around it where we can maximize our odds of having a good end result, right? I can there's all this price transparency. If I and again guardrails. If I go to buy a home, the bank is going to say, well, what do you make? What do you have in savings? Because we're only going to give you the amount enough money so that you don't get yourself in trouble, right? We don't want you to go buy a home you can't afford and it ends up with a bad result, right? So you're going to get your budget and then you're going to go shopping. That's not how college works, right? Taxes, we can use a professional, we can use a CPA to work with, right? Oftentimes we call ourselves the TurboTax of going through this financial aid and scholarships. But the fact of the matter is, most of you had never heard of us before. You never even knew there was kind of an industry here. There really hasn't been one truly established. And that's one of the superpowers that these colleges have is that consumers are going through this kind of blindly on their own in this ass backwards process where we go shopping first and then we kind of find out what our budget is, and then we go figure out how the hell are we going to pay for it. We don't allow our families to do that, right? We got to flip that process on its head. But again, the kind of the masses, the general public, that's how we're going through this process. This is the first one, okay? In terms of again, action absorbs anxiety. As you're going through this with us tonight, if you haven't already, create your free account. So you're going to know what your SAIs are. You're going to know what colleges are going to give you scholarships. Some of these terms are new to you guys, but I'm going to put this link in the chat in just a second here. But as you're going through this tonight, again, we're going to start by talking about how this system works. This is going to tell you, this platform is going to tell you how is it going to work for my family. So again, just setting the stage there. But JP, why don't you dig in here and start coaching us up on how this whole thing works?
I want to just add some seasoning to a comment you made or a slide you had earlier about the whole vicious cycle, if you will. I'll just kind of share a little behind the curtain stuff and tell you and remind everyone at the end of the day, colleges or higher education as a whole is not this altruistic industry of like, oh, we're just here to make everybody better and improve the community. They are one of the largest business industries out there in the world. And unfortunately, most of the industry is beholden or follows the advice of a handful of consulting companies that have been advising them for about 35 or more years, saying, hey, if you want to seem more prestigious, if you want to attract the smarter kids, if you want to rise up the ranks, raise your price. And it doesn't matter if you really are worth it or not, just raise your price. And frankly, Wall Street, the venture capitalists who provide all these private loans nowadays, they love this idea. And the government has, for 40 plus years, has fully backed this. Just recently, they're finally going to start curbing it a bit of how much they're, financing it, but they love it too. And it is this vicious cycle. And there was a wonderful article in the New York Times. Golly, you remember, Matt? It was maybe in the end of 2024 or 2025, I think. But anyway, basically the analogy was, most families think that colleges is like playing checkers. In reality, sure, it's the same board, but in reality, they're playing chess. And so you're just at a huge disadvantage because you don't know what the game is. So right. Anyway,
I think that's our boy Lieber, but yeah,
I think it was Ron.
And believe me, you don't want to run into me or JP at a cocktail party when this stuff comes. As you can see, we'll have your ear for the rest of the evening. So
yeah. But anyway, so the model that colleges, most of the industry follows is this: inflate your sticker price even though you're not worth it, inflate it, and then offer big discounts. But when I say big discounts, again, they know more about your buying habits and spending habits. This is why when you fill out a Common App and why you fill out some of these financial aid forms, they're going to ask you questions that have nothing to do about financial aid, where they're going to be like, like what's your parents' education and all this kind of stuff. They have the most advanced algorithms to know, hey, a family that fits a certain demographic, certain profile, we only need to give them 20% discount and they'll buy. Like the majority of them will buy. That's all they care about. And so that's what, what they're doing is the business model is just figuring out what's the least amount we can give you to make you buy. And so, but the way they do it, the way they offer these discounts is through ultimately technically three buckets, if you will. The first bucket is going to be need-based grants. Grants we love because it is free money. And at the end of the day, though, it's going to be awarded based upon financial information, specifically your income and assets. And I'll get more into the details later. But basically, you reapply every single year. You fill out these financial aid forms. They recalculate your SAI, your student index, based upon your income and assets, and that's going to ultimately be the barometer of how much financial aid you get or don't get. I should say need-based aid. The second bucket is going to be merit-based scholarships, and they're basically awarded based upon the students', I'll just say generically, talent. That talent might be academic, might be, a certain GPA or test scores. It might be that they are a great sport, play, a great athlete in a sport. Maybe they're just the best cellist in the school needs that. So, but scholarships are great. They are free money. They're for the most part going to be steady every single year. Now, you could always lose a scholarship. I mean, if your grades fall below a certain GPA, you could lose it. If you're like an athlete, you get hurt, you could lose it. But it's at least not dependent upon your income and assets. And then there is technically this third bucket of financial aid we call self-help, basically loans and work study. Obviously, this is not free money. In fact, loans make college more expensive. So, but they will call it financial assistance because it just means you don't have to write a check for everything right then and there that year. So, but these are the three buckets of financial aid.
I might even challenge you on the word obviously to you and me, but as we know.
Oh, fair. Yeah. I mean, I forget. I live and breathe this for 26 years.
Yeah, as we know, some of these colleges, I'll pick on UC Davis, your old buddies at USC, will.
They don't do it anymore. I'm going to defend USC.
You're right. You're right. Take it back. UC Davis is they, and again, they're not alone, so it's kind of unfair to highlight them. But a lot of times people get confused because when they give their offers and it says, here's how much we cost and here's the total amount you owe at the bottom, it says zero. People are crying. They're so happy. In the details, 70,000 of this was apparent federal government.
Yeah. So, and I will admit, USC did do that a few years ago. So shame on them. They made Santa's naughty list that year.
There you go. Well, at least, hey, they made right. So we'll credit where credit's due. They made it right.
Yeah. Thankfully, they caught on. I know that the vice provost there, and yeah. So anyway, so let's talk about this need-based aid. How are we going to get this bucket of grant? And this is going to tie into someone asked a question earlier, and I said, hey, I'll address this more later. So every school is going to give you what's called a cost of attendance. Think of it as like a sticker price. But it's not just their direct costs. They budget indirect costs like, hey, how much we think you might need for a computer, books, travel, just miscellaneous stuff. But it's like, think of it as the gross sticker price, how much you should budget. So tuition fees, room and board, all that stuff, plus some of the indirects. And so just keep my number simple. Let's say that's 100,000. Then you're going to fill out these financial aid forms, and like I said, you're going to report. I'm going to just say generically, you're reporting your income and assets. And from that, they're going to calculate your student aid index. And I'll just, in case anyone has never heard a financial aid presentation before, I'm going to warn you, it is not an affordable number. It's that you see that, you're going to be like, it's not an affordable number. But they're going to calculate what your SAI is. And then subtract from that, cost of attendance tells us how much you need for financial aid. So if this is what I call the fundamental formula to financial aid. So if you understand this formula, a lot of things down the road will make more sense. But the idea is, if let's say your SAI is 60,000, you then need 40,000. But here's the kicker. That doesn't mean you're going to automatically get 40,000 in aid from all these schools. Just because you need it, that doesn't mean the school has enough money to give it to you. Some schools do. some schools have a generous need-based financial aid program, and they meet 100% need, and they're very generous with the grants. Some schools do, but not all schools. So, and you also have to understand, depending on the school, you could have a different SAI from different schools, especially the schools that use a CSS profile. So, admittedly, I feel like I'm making this too easy, and I don't want to simplify, but I want to keep it simple so you understand the principle. But understand, really behind the scenes, this is far more complex. This is actually a grad course, 1 semester grad course about how to understand this formula. The formula for the essay alone is about 65 pages long if I printed it out, and that's the abridged version of it. But this is a graduate level course in more detail. I'm giving you the elementary school version of it. But to see how this works in real life, so I'm tempted to tell you which schools these are, but I will just say these schools, 2 schools that we're showing, are in the same state. They it's not like we picked radically different, locations, geographic locations, but basically you have this public school where they say their sticker price was about 35,000. I'm rounding clearly. And then you have the private university where their sticker price was more than double, more than double. And frankly, I always want to bring this up because I've had families who said, "Oh, I'm not going to let my kid apply to that school because we can't afford that sticker price." Sure, I know you can't, but this is where financial aid, if everything's working well, can actually work well. And so if you see this case here and you go, okay, the public school, they all, at the end of the day, they qualified for only the direct loan, the $5,500 federal direct loan, or if anyone's close to my age, we called it the Stafford loan back in the day. But their true costs, because all they got was the direct loan, was the full cost, the full sticker price, 34,554, right? The private school, the one that the sticker price is more than double, they got about 30, what was it, $32,000 in free money. So their true cost at the end of the day, the school sticker price minus the free money was basically 40,000. I'll be honest, when I'm looking at the cost difference of being 30, I'm rounding 35,000 to 76, 77,000. Yeah, I would never apply if that's what I thought it really was. But when my true cost is a difference between about 35,000 and 40, and it's only, $5,500 difference, okay, that private school's back on the table. Like I'm willing to, let my kid apply to that. Like, let's talk. Let's try this. So I think the main point I want to, just hammer home is, don't exclude a school simply because of the sticker price. You do want to pay attention to what is your net cost. That sticker price minus the free money. What was the net cost of that school? And then see if it's affordable.
For the vast majority of you, if not all of you, we could be batting 100% here. The sticker prices at many of the schools you apply to will be irrelevant. It'll be a distraction in terms of how much it's actually going to cost your family after you've been packaged, which again speaks to our point that we're talking about here in terms of swimming against the current with this kind of lack of transparency, because that's pretty stinking counterintuitive, right? So anyways, but just to kind of triple down on your point there, JP, like that's the takeaway. Like, okay, as I'm starting to build my list, I'm probably going to ignore the cost of attendance, right? I want to be focused on my net cost.
Yeah. And can you go back the slide? Because I want to address the question here. Because someone asked a great question like, hey, it would have been helpful on the slide if you would have separated out the free money in the self-help. I'm going to tell you the reason we don't is because the schools don't. The schools will combine all the stuff in. And so if anything, this is one of the more clear examples. But you're going to see a lot of confusing financial aid offer letters. I mean, we have a whole nother presentation just on the confusing financial aid offer letters. But so I appreciate the question, but that's kind of the point. The schools will mix all of that in together, and you're left there kind of scratching your head going, okay, well, what is my cost?
Believe it or not, when I was picking on UC Davis earlier, we would probably schools that present their financial aid award letters like this, we would probably give them like an A minus to an A. Right?
Yeah.
This.
To be perfectly honest, yeah. So earlier I said, when calculating that SAI, for need-based aid for the grants, at the end of the day, there's two, if I were to summarize it, there's two big components in it. income and assets. So let's talk about income. The financial aid forms are going to look at what we call prior tax year's income. So I know a lot of you said you're class of 2027, right? So when you fill out financial aid forms, it's going to be importing, or you're going to be reporting your 2025 tax return information. And just think about that for a moment. By the time your child goes to school in fall of 2027, the financial aid was based upon taxes from 2 years ago. Stuff can happen. I was just doing a consult with a family 20 minutes before this we started, and in that case, one parent basically got retired, and then the other one just flat out let go. Their situation is completely different. And that all happened in 2025, but it's completely different than what their 24 tax returns looked like. So it's a big situation for their daughter who's starting in the fall of 2026. So you have to just remember there's a 2 year look back, if you will, and ultimately the I'm oversimplifying it again, but the two biggest things they're going to look on the tax return will be your AGI and taxes paid. Those are the two biggest drivers that they're going to look at. Um, I will say for the student, for the whichever child is applying for financial aid, they also will be asked to report their taxes if they worked, right. And students though can earn up to almost $12,000 before it would even impact their SAI calculation on a FAFSA. Rule can be different for schools that use the CSS, but just assume that it can be different. Yeah, they can earn a pretty decent chunk of change before it would even impact their financial aid calculation.
Yeah. Sorry, JP. I'll let you finish your thought.
No, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Well, and again, I know you're going to talk about this more because we were obviously talking about it in the green room before we went live today, and you can save that specific example, I guess, before we break. But just again, I just want to reiterate what you just said because again, I just know it's not common knowledge for people. A lot of people are showing up tonight, probably like maybe his class 2027, being like, okay, it's time to get going. Our base
Yeah,
income year has already come and gone. Class
yeah.
2026, we're already in it. 25's starting, we're almost at Q.
Yeah, I'll share the example. So, especially the importance of this prior, and so for like you, especially like your 2028. I saw there was a few 2028s. If you're thinking, hey, I got plenty of time, I'm going to tell you, no, you don't. This is your critical year for 2028s. 2027s, depending if you've already filed your taxes, could be already critical, or maybe we still have a window for a lot of proactive strategy. But here's the idea: I one of my families that I'm working with is class of 2027. They started with me 7 months ago, and in their situation, dad's a business owner, so this is gives us some leeway and some strategies. But at the end of the day, when I looked at their taxes and the way they were doing everything, they were going to qualify for no need-based aid. They were full pay. They're going to get stuck paying the $100,000 bill at every single school. We talked about some strategies on what they could do and restructure the business and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, they're now on track. Their SAI is lowered, and they're on track now that should qualify for about $40,000 in free money at all the schools. And the dad, all we had to do is just restructure some stuff. And so, but that required planning in advance. And so I want to just really emphasize, because of that 2 year look back, you have to plan sooner than you realize. If you really want to make the most meaningful impact with cutting costs. So
100%.
anyway,
And to be clear, it's not like you're screwed. Believe me,
no,
plenty of people will show up to us senior year, fall, friggin' hair on fire. Holy shit, I have to do this now, right? Like
right.
it's human nature, right? Like so. And it's not like we still can't have an impact, but it's just again, it's both anecdotally and in all the data just shows like the earlier right? We can kind of sink our teeth in and plan. It's not surprising. It maximizes our odds of having the best end result. So that's why we're belaboring the point here, because it's true.
Yeah. And I can give you a counterexample here on this one, but let's talk about assets. So assets are the other big factor in the SAI calculation, right? And so the I will just say, as you guys can read these numbers, but when it comes to strategy, potential strategies, ownership of assets is critical. And I want you to think about that for a moment. Ownership of assets is so critical. As you can see, if a student owns an asset, it's assessed at a much higher percentage than a parent. Okay. And then, as I'll allude to, is and then if what if neither of them owned the asset? But anyway, assets is ownership is what's super critical. Again, and it's knowing who owns what, But at the end of the day, there's I don't know. I don't see them occur as often as anymore, but they still occur. But like UGMAs and UTMAs, they're getting outdated, but they still exist, and they're student owned assets, and so they're going to get hit at a much higher percentage than if there was a parent asset. But the other thing I'll say is not your money in retirement, like a 401k, a Roth, IRAs, things like that. Um, Even if your advisor sets you up with cash value life insurance, that stuff is off the table. Like they will ask about it, but it does not impact your SAI calculation. So, but you potentially are going to could get assessed on everything else that's not related to retirement. Um, Trying to see. Okay, so I kind of tease this a little bit. So 529s, one of the more most popular ways that families perhaps pre-save for college. So let's talk about how that impacts things. At the end of the day, it depends on the financial aid form. And so depending on which schools, what applications they use. But on a FAFSA, the 529, well, first of all, is not considered a student asset. If mom and dad, you set up a 529 for your child and all that, it's not the student's asset. It is considered now a parent asset. So that's good, for strategy purposes, going from being assessed at like 20 or more percent to now to like 5.64%. So it's going to be considered a parent asset. Now, if like in my case, it wasn't the grandparents who set up a 529, it was my brother. So from my son's perspective, his uncle set up 529 accounts for all his nephews and nieces. I don't have to report that. Okay. So again, ownership matters. The other key though is if, let's say, mom and dad, you did set up a 529 on a FAFSA, and let's say you have multiple kids and they all have 529s. On the FAFSA, you only are going to report the value of the 529 for which that particular applicant is the beneficiary. So if you had 3 kids and they all had 50,000 of 529 values, on the FAFSA, you'd only report the 50,000 for that applicant. Okay. Whereas on the CSS profile, they're going to ask for it all. All right. So you would be reporting all 150,000. So it does matter which application. That makes a big difference. So just understand that there are different rules for different applications. And yeah, okay, grandparents I talked about. Let's see. Someone's asking about ownership at time of reporting taxes. Meaning, is it too late to transfer ownership? So that's the other thing. Yes. So ownership. So when you fill out these forms, it's what is the value of these assets the day you're filing those application forms. So it's not what was the value of those assets when you filed taxes in the past. It's what is the value of those assets the day you're filing the financial aid forms. So there is also like basically two timelines, right? So income 2 years prior, assets more or less think present value the day you're filing those applications, hitting submit on those applications.
Okay.
So let's talk about home equity. Um, Another potential asset that could be counted against you. Again, it's going to depend on the application. FAFSA, you don't report your home equity. And that's important to understand because on the FAFSA, if you read the question in big print, it's like, what's the value of your real estate? And so a lot of people knee jerk reactions like, well, that's my home. Actually, that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about like second home, investment property, rental properties, whatever, but not your primary home. So that's a FAFSA doesn't, you don't have to report your home. But the CSS profile is going to ask all sorts of questions about your home. They're going to ask, purchase year, purchase price, current market value, what's your debt, what's your primary, mortgage payment, all that stuff. That said, it doesn't mean every single school is going to use it, and it doesn't mean that every school is going to use it the same. Okay, so like I have a master list that I refer to that's 6 pages long of schools, and just give you an idea. So like some schools that don't use it, that meaning it doesn't impact the calculation of SAI, USC, Stanford, UPenn doesn't, but Vanderbilt doesn't, right? Then there are schools that do, but again to different degrees. Like SMU uses all of it. Okay, but then you have a school like Tufts that uses the home equity up to 250% of whatever your AGI is. So 2.5 times your AGI. University of Miami uses it 120% above your AGI. So so the schools can use it in different degrees. So and again, that's not something you would need to know. And like I would never expect you to try to memorize or research all that. We have that baked into the MyCap software. So when you just plug in your data and all that stuff, it's already baked into that formula. But let's see. I don't Yeah, okay. So business owners. Let's talk about the business. So if you're a business owner, here's the thing to think about. Again, different applications have different rules. A FAFSA will say if your business size is less than 100 employees, if it employs less than 100 people, you don't have to report a business value. Okay. Um, the CSS profile again is going to go into all the details about it. The CSS profile is going to tell us like what kind of tax return do you file, like who's the owner, percent of owners, what give me numbers from the tax return, all that stuff. The key I would always say is, and this is true for a lot of your assets, but if you're valuing your asset, is this is not the time to think about it like, like if I was go to sell and like I want to get every penny out, do you go to like oh golly, business brokers and those kind of where they're gonna like, oh yeah, your business is worth, as much as they can possibly make it worth. You want to approach the forms of like from a conservative value, kind of like the idea of like if I stopped working, like what's in this business? What is there to buy? I would tell you approach it very conservatively when you run the valuations or come up with a valuation. Don't just do the default like, oh, 2 to 3 times your income and all that stuff. But think about like, especially if you have a service business, like if I bought it and then I lost all your customers, what do I own? What do I have? So, but so anyway, but again, FAFSA, you don't have to report it at all. If you have less than 100 employees, CSS profile will ask more details about it. And then someone's asked about being a partner, considered being an owner. Yeah, so if you're a partner at a company, you're considered an owner, so you have to report your percentage of ownership, all that stuff. But yeah, and then I think someone asked, do you need to complete these FAFSA and CSS every? Yeah, the financial aid forms you reapply for every year. Okay, and then okay, so what if your family situation is that where you're a two household family, could be just separated, maybe you're divorced, whatever the case may be. FAFSA, again, these have different rules, but a FAFSA is going to say who's the custodial parent. And this, I'm going to say, you also, I'm assuming you live in separate address, separate homes. If that's the case, the FAFSA is going to say who's the custodial parent, and that's just essentially defined as the 12 months leading up to when you submit this application, who provided the most financial support. That is going to be the custodial parent, and they'll be the ones that ask to fill out the FAFSA for parent income and assets. Now, if you remarried, if that custodial parent remarried, then the spouse's info is going to be in there. New spouse will be in that info as well. I'm just going to bring this up because this has interestingly been kind of a common theme lately with some of our clients. But if you're, let's say, divorced but still live together, or maybe you were never married and lived together, if you're living under the same roof, the FAFSA is going to say both parents provide that information. Okay, you will be providing your income and assets, but that's not as common. But the CSS profile, they're going to ask sure, you identify whoever's the custodial parent, and they're going to fill out that information on that CSS profile application. But they're going to ask the non-custodial parent to also fill out their own application and again provide their income and assets. So they're going to look at both biological parents, the schools that use the CSS profile. So again, different rules for different schools.
That's right. And then I'm going to have you come back to this, JP,
Yeah.
before we close, because I want to hit on two things, and I want to actually get into the platform and kind of look at some case studies here, because obviously we've covered a lot of information here. So the first thing, right, again, when we talk about taking some action here, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do this in a second, you need to kind of categorize your family from an SAI standpoint. Where do I fit on this financial aid spectrum, and how should that dictate some of my strategy? Some of my strategy. Let's try that again. If we find out our SAI is between negative 1,500, which is the lowest it can go, and about 25,000. The schools that are going to be the most affordable for us are the in-state public schools and private universities, private colleges that meet a high percentage of need, right? How am I supposed to know which ones those are? I'm going to show you specifically. If we're in this kind of middle category, anywhere between, again, call it 25,000, 75,000, okay? In-state public, okay? Private schools that meet a high percentage of need, and then schools that are good with merit, right? Those are going to be, again, the types of colleges that are going to discount the deepest for these kind of middle bucket families, right? And then finally, we have these, if we have the high SAIs, we're 75,000 or above, we're not going to have more than one kid in school at one time, right? This is where we're looking at, the public schools, or maybe schools that have the honor programs, and then the private schools that are very good with merit, right? Not necessarily good with need-based financial aid, but very good with merit. And there's still plenty of amazing institutions that are great with merit. So again, I'm going to show you how to do this in just a second here. And then also talk a little bit about, like, well, if we're in that kind of category 3 family, maybe our SAI is 250,000 or 150,000 or whatever. Don't fall into this trap of thinking we're going to go get discounts and we're going to make this affordable by going after private scholarships, right? Of all the money that's out there when it comes to college, about 5% comes from private scholarships. Don't fall into that trap, right? We need to get smart by, again, who's going to give us discounts based on merit? Which colleges, like me and JP, I think, hit it pretty hard at the beginning that, like, let's be clear, these colleges are businesses, but guess what? We can use that to advantage as consumers. We're going to create leverage by applying to competing schools, right? If you come to my neck of the woods in Boston and you love Northeastern, but you hated Boston University, guess what? I'm going to make you apply to Boston University. I know we're never going to go there, but know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that award and I'm going to get you a better deal at Northeastern, regardless of what your income is, right? That's very, very important. And again, not necessarily common knowledge of making sure when we talk about a strategic school list, this is a lot of what we're talking about to make sure that we are creating that leverage and we are not, we're kind of throwing out that we're telling these colleges, I don't care if I'm a billionaire, I'll go to your direct competitor for $20,000 less unless you want to, make me a more competitive offer, right? So a couple things to kind of talk through here. If you haven't already, do it right now, guys. Do it right now. I'm going to put this link in the chat again. Okay, mycap.collegeapro.com. You take 2 minutes to you answer a couple questions, back of the napkin estimates, no big deal. You're going to see your SAIs staring you front and center, right? So you're going to see, okay, am I a category one? Am I a category two? Right? Am I a category three? That's really helpful. Okay, so that frames us kind of right away. Um, if there's any college, just go throw out a college, guys. Put in the college, put in the chat a college that's your top choice or your alma mater or one that you're going to visit during spring break. Give me a college, okay? Tulane.
Tulane, first one.
Um, so let's look at Tulane, okay? Okay, look, it's not cheap, right? It's not free to go there. $101,000. Guess what? Who gives a shit? We're gonna pay 60, okay? Why? Why are we gonna pay 60? If there's any school where I want to do a deep dive, I just select this deep dive button. I can go to the financial tab and it's gonna tell me, okay, here's this college's business model, institutional. So they're looking at both households. They're looking at my business. They might be looking at home equity. But again, this is my in the weeds. Okay, I know how this college conducts business. They meet 94% of need. Great. They meet a lot of it with free money. Perfect. So I can see what I'm actually going to pay, not just year one, but for all 4 years. Okay. Um, Again, we can for every college in the country, we have every scholarship that they offer, the qualifications for each. We're really good at telling you how much are you going to get, if anything, right? And then any college that you put on here, this is kind of this affordability tab. Right now, especially you 27s are probably talking to your school counselors. We're starting to make this list of safety target reach schools. Here's your safety target reach from a financial standpoint, right? And you can play with this. Okay, I can move my budget around. I can, what if my income goes up? What if it goes down? What if I move some assets from here to here? How would it impact my SAI? And more importantly, the net costs at each of these colleges. What happens if I'm thinking about, maybe I'm thinking about working with JP for admissions. What happens if we're able to get this GPA from a 3.4 to a 3.7? That gonna impact merit, right, at some of these schools? So a lot of the challenges that we're facing here as a family, especially in the early stages here, just we've done the work for you. When we talk about which colleges consider home equity, how much are they going to look at my ex-spouse's information? That's the algorithm accounts for all of that at every single school, and these aren't averages. This is specific to your family's situation. And I want to show you one more thing. So, and this is especially important for you guys that are not eligible for need-based aid, right? This is what I do. We have dozens of filters over here. I'm going to take 2 seconds just to pick a couple. But let's say your kid wants to go to a small school and they want to stay relatively close to home and they want to major in whatever bio. Okay. I can put those filters in and I can say, just go sort based on who's going to give me the most in merit-based scholarships. And it's instantaneously going to do that. Like, okay, well, Dickinson's going to give me a $45,000 discount regardless of my income. That's interesting. Amazing little school, right? Clarkson, my kid wants to be in engineering. I have like a fantastic engineering program. They're going to throw 40 grand at me, regardless of how much money I make or how much we have in savings. If we are eligible for financial aid, so you're one of these category one or two families, you can just sort based on who meets the highest percentage of need. It's all in here. Yes, it's impossible to get into MIT, but here's a few other schools, right, that maybe are a little bit more realistic from an admission standpoint, okay, that are excellent in terms of meeting need-based financial aid. So the answers to a ton of your questions are here, right? So go in there and just start calibrating yourself right now, right, tonight. So because again, the most I don't know. One of the most common questions we get is like, where the hell do we start? Because that is there's just kind of so much cooking here. Create your free account, see what category you fit in, right? Your family fits in, and that should help, um, start you down the path of a good strategy when it comes to the affordability piece of this. Okay, sorry guys, got a little lost here in my in my screens. Give me 1 second. Let me bring this deck back up. Thanks for your patience. Okay. Um, and then I'm gonna whip through a few of these slides here because as we get somewhat close to time, you guys are gonna get the recording, you're gonna get the deck. So, and by design, we spent the most time on the front end of this process, which is where you guys should be living right now. So a lot of this stuff is just planting seeds, which again, I promise you, I'm going to blow through this stuff. But everybody should complete the financial aid applications, even if you're not going to qualify for financial aid, even if your SAI is going to be $150,000. Some of these colleges require them to get merit-based scholarships, right? All of them will require, if you want to take advantage of the federal direct student loan that you're entitled to, right? Which we would recommend every single family utilize, even if you don't need it, right? If nothing else, to establish credit for your kid, because it's only in their name, you have to complete the FAFSA. Okay. So this is going to have some of the best practices in terms of, timelines and who requires what and actual links to the FAFSA, right? We have a little kind of cheat sheet here of some best practices on both the FAFSA as well as the CSS profile. Right. So again, as we approach kind of financial aid season, we do line by line presentations through these, and we will, again, the entire presentation will just be around the financial aid applications. So this is more of a teaser of, hey, what's around the corner. But again, I just kind of want to give you some context when you as you have that information. So, JP, I'm going to give you, let's say, I know you wanted to talk through the slide, and I think it's worth it. Um, but keep it 3 to 4 minutes. Let's do that.
Okay, I will try.
Yes.
Let's see, yeah, the
Oh, I wasn't sharing any of that, was I? That's
no,
how
you weren't. Sorry.
perfect. Sorry, sorry, guys, because okay, just to give you a teaser of what I was, everybody's going to get these slides, but links to the FAFSA, a FAFSA kind of cheat sheet, best practices, same with the CSS profile. Again, I don't want you getting too distracted with this stuff right now because as we approach, kind of financial aid application season, which is not until the fall of the senior year. That's all you're going to hear from us. That's all these presentations are going to be. Again, we're still going to be coaching you up as underclassmen because guess what? We want you engaged, right? And we talked about some of these earlier. But JP, yeah, see if we can hit this in just a couple of minutes before I bring us home.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, I would summarize it as there's there's only going to be two ways, arguably three ways that you're going to find schools that fit your budget. And it's either going to be because the school gives you enough grant money, or they give you enough merit scholarships, or they just don't charge, this inflated, made up, make believe sticker price. They just charge a fair price, right? That's going to be it. So, and everybody's in a different situation at the end of the day. But I'll say is, I shared with an example earlier how a family, they planned early in their strategy involved repositioning business income and the business structure and all that kind of stuff, right? I had a family, it was last year, who they'd been watching our webinars since freshman year. They plugged in their data into the MyCap software, but no matter how many webinars they watched, clearly our message didn't sink through as, hey, talk to us early, talk to us early, talk to us early. It didn't sink in. They waited until the senior year, like it was, I think they came to me in July, just before senior year started. And they're like, hey, we know we're not going to qualify for need-based aid. Can you just help us find other schools that, alternative schools that will fit our budget, et cetera, et cetera, where our son might be positioned to qualify for merit aid. That's fine. But when I looked at their situation, I was like, guys, had you come to me just even a year sooner, we could have repositioned your assets in a way that you would have qualified for a meaningful amount of grant money. They just didn't believe it. They didn't realize it. just because again, you plug in the data in MyCap, that doesn't mean you know strategies. So I'm going to tell you that there's always a strategy behind that stuff. But submit the financial aid forms. Um, Look, if you need, I had another family who isn't going to qualify for grants, isn't going to, well, maybe qualify for merit, but not at the schools that the daughter was choosing. She wanted Ivies. Basically, they don't do private, they don't do scholarships. But at the end of the goal, I sat with them and was like, "Well, what's your ultimate goal?" And she's like, "I want to get into pre med. I want to be, and I'm going to be pre med. I want to get into med school." I'm like, "Then let's focus on your ultimate goal, med school." And I found alternate schools that actually had better performance of getting her into med school than the Ivies, and they were half the price. And the dad was flabbergasted, like, what? And again, that's what I say, don't look at rankings, they mean nothing. Look at the actual data, the performance of the school. And so find alternate schools. But ultimately, you're pursuing need-based aid by strategically repositioning income and assets. You're applying for you, or you're positioning yourself for the schools that offer merit scholarships, or you're just finding the schools that just charge a fair price to begin with, right? But that's how I would summarize your strategies here. Key strategies to cut costs.
Yeah, and obviously, again, JP said it right, and because it's the truth, and I did too, probably. But like, yeah, there's not a one size fits all, which is why this is a challenging process, right? So, I'm gonna share a link right now. Here's why I want everybody to book some time and talk with us, okay? And do it right now, right? And this is again why, again, to belabor my little saying here that I stole is this action absorbs anxiety. Now, this is why I want you to do it. Number one, what's going to happen in this meeting is we're going to look at your platform, right, to see, okay, here's what type of category your family is. We're going to gut check your SAI. We're going to see, okay, does this align with what we'd expect for what you're going to pay at the colleges you guys are currently exploring? Do we expect scholarships? Do we expect financial aid? So you're going to get a set of expert eyes on that. And then you can learn how we work with families, right? We work with families, we drag them through this entire process. But here's the deal. If we work with a family, we guarantee, okay, in writing, okay, we guarantee that at least save you as much money as it costs to work with us, okay? And we have a couple different, price points, right? Which we'll talk about. But I share that because we don't recommend this product, or I don't know if that's the word. We don't recommend this service for everybody because we have to stand tall that we were able to demonstrate a clear return on your investment, right? And if not, you get it. You get 100% of your money back. And my team knows that, and quite frankly, they have to answer to me when things don't go the way that we expected them to go, right? And when we have to give full refunds. Now, guess what? It happens. I think last year it happened for less than 1% of our clients, or maybe one in change. It was like 98.7% or something like that for our class of uh 2026. So that's why we're able to do it, because we won't recommend that everybody take advantage of that service, right? Given that we have legitimate skin in the game and risk, right, from our end. But if you're not a good fit for that, we have great free resources, right? There's a free version of the platform for everybody. If you want to upgrade to all the bells and whistles, it's $5 a month. You can just purchase kind of a la carte hours to meet with anybody on our team if you don't need, all the help, right? Our wake me up when it's over package. So just see what category you fit into and feel really good that you're going to get pointed in the right direction, because we're quite literally financially invested in our recommendation if we think that you're a good candidate for kind of a full service family. I don't know a better way to kind of put our money where our mouth is than that. So please challenge us on that. And I also think it's just a great foundation of having this conversation, because again, for those of you, and it'll be most of you that don't work with us, we're going to get you pointed on the right direction. We're going to sanity check kind of where you are. And again, if we're going to send you off into the wild, we're going to at least get you pointed in the right direction. So take advantage of this. You'll thank yourself for it. Again, and JP, We didn't do our job tonight if you don't sign up for a consult, as I said at the beginning, because we said action will absorb some anxiety for us. So take advantage of that. Again, you risk nothing, um, and you'll get legitimate value even if that's the last of your experiences with us. So JP, any we're at the hour here, and we try to be great with let me actually give this actual link here.
Oh
Um,
yeah, sorry.
we try to be great with time, but any closing thoughts for
Yeah,
you?
you know, your phrase, action absorbs anxiety is my twist on that is the old saying, knowledge is power. No, it's not. Absolutely not. Knowledge paired with action, that's power. And so, yeah, the stuff, the sooner you start, the earlier you start, the smaller steps we need to take and can have compounding in, impact later on. So, yeah, but just don't wait till it's October of
Don't
their
wait.
senior
Just,
year.
just jump on it. You showed up tonight. Just close the deal and sign up for a time. But you will also get the recording tomorrow, right? Everybody's gonna get the recording tomorrow, the slide deck. And I know we had some questions at the beginning around some of the new changes to the loan program that this administration has implemented. The last slide on the deck has some details around that as well. So JP, I appreciate you as always, my dude, and yeah, hope you guys got a few nuggets here tonight, and you know where to find us. Moving forward, if you don't decide to if you don't decide to book some time with us over the next couple of days here. So appreciate you, everybody, and have a great rest of your night or late afternoon. Thanks, guys.